Yeah, I'm not gonna stay here for very long, so we'll work out soon. Hopefully, I can finish this section here before, then probably come back later.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Today we're going to
Put some music on. Thankfully, all the work is not lost when you log out. Yeah, it makes sense because otherwise nobody would be able to build anything there. I don't think I understand what it wants me to do. So some characters are not supposed to be in URLs, so I have to encode them. So I have to build an API point, endpoint mounted at get slash name. So I suppose this means that I have to put app.get, then put slash name on strings there. Respond with a JSON document, take the structure. So where should I put this? Put there, here. Slash name. And then here should be a JSON document, I think. No, it has to be the rec res function, I think. And then inside the JSON document, probably. With res.json. Yeah, let's do that. Then inside of here, put this object here. The first and last name parameters should be encoded in query strings. But I don't understand how to do that. Didn't say anything about that. What is a query string? I'm almost sure that this is not gonna pass the test there, but if it does, I'm gonna see the useful programmer video. It's probably something I'm supposed to do with this, but don't understand. So this, the actual request, this is and that's how it's formatted. So maybe this inside of that instead. No, that doesn't make any sense because here is different. Maybe it's just uh, doing this. See if it works. Yeah, I can't do this. Let's watch the useful programmer stuff.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Today, we're going to get query parameters from an input from a client. So the query parameters are different. We're producing this and pushing our changes to a live production Heroku app. And so if you want to follow along with this tutorial effectively, you should probably go back and start from the beginning of managing packages if you're new. Otherwise, we're continuing on. Another common way to get input from the client is by encoding the data after the route path using a query string. Okay, so instead of doing this, we're going to be adding things to the tail. So something like whatever, you know. And the question mark makes it so our server reads things differently. The query string is delimited by a question mark and includes a field equals value couples. Each couple is separated by an ampersand. Express can parse the data from the query string and populate the object request.query. Some characters, like percentage signs, cannot be used in URLs and have to be encoded in a different format before you can send them. If you use the API for JavaScript, you can use specific methods to encode and decode these characters. So our root path, if we go to library, but our actual request, meaning what we actually type into the thing, is library question, user ID equals 546, and then the book ID. So we're going to get a request query object on our server with an object in it that is equal to where the user ID is equal to 546, user ID, the string of 546, book ID 6754, 6754. So we want to build an API endpoint mounted at the get /name. Okay, so here we have the get input, the query parameters. So we want to say we're going to go app.get, and then we're going to say have the route be /name, and then we're going to do something else, right? We want to respond with a JSON document taking the structure of name, first name, last name. The first and last name parameters should be encoded in a query string. So like this. So yeah, locally, what will this look like? If we went to local and we had a query string, what we're going to do is go to /name, and then we're going to have a query string. So it starts with a question mark, and then we have what looks like user ID equals 546 and book ID equals that, separated by an ampersand. So this is separated by an ampersand. So first, last name. Now if we run this, well, nothing happens because we don't even have our server started. So in the following exercise, you're going to receive data from a post request at the same name route path. If you want, you can use the method app.route.get handler. Well, let's just cross this bridge when we get there. So for now, we'll just make it so we can get a app.get, and so /name, and then we're going to have a function which does a request, response, and here is our callback function. And so what do we want to do? So our request, our query parameters, right? Request.query. So if I were to console.log, request.query. Now let's save this. Now I'm just console logging this so I can inspect the request.query object. So we're saying our request, and it's the .query. So now if I go npm start, and we go back to our localhost and we pass this guy in, we log out the object, which is request.query, which is great, right? This is exactly, now we can tell that we've got this object being passed in. So request.query is equal to first and last. And so if we were to, now we can structure this because we have an object that's like that. We want a response to be name. So we want to say, and it says that we want to return a JSON document, which I'm not exactly sure if that means, it should just be res.json. So we're going to respond with a JSON, and we're going to pass in an object in which we have our name is the key, and the value is going to be a string with the first name and last name. So we can say request.query because request.query and then .first. So request.query.first, and we can add a space in here because we want it to be the first name, and then the space, and then the last name. And then here we'll add request.query. Last. Yeah, last, which will make it so we pass in whatever our last name is. Here we're passing first name and last name in there. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to get rid of the console log, and we're just going to respond with the JSON. So I'm saving this, and then I'm going to cancel our server and then restart it by pressing up to restart quickly. And here I'll say instead of first name, I'll say useful. Here I'll say programmer. So we're passing it in. We're passing a query parameter in with our first and last name, and that responds with JSON with a name, and then it's putting it together into a single string. And I believe that's what we want. Cool. So we can cancel our local server, and now what we have is it working on our local server. But what happens if we do this? If we go to our production server on Heroku? I don't
understand what this rec query gives. I think that's what he did there.
We pass this in. Well, we should get not found because we haven't set this up. We have not pushed our local code. This guy is not on our production server. So that's what we want to do now. So to do that, we'll do use git in Heroku.
Space.
So get status, we can see we've got my app has been adjusted. Get diff, we see that we've added a app here. So we want to say get add, and then we say get commit add period, which means add all the diff changes. And then we say get commit dash m, and in there.
What is a query? So
We're going
says
to
it's
pass
like
in a message.
consultation.
So we're going to say add a name API endpoint, which accepts query parameters. And so now we've committed the change, and now we want to push the change to our production app. Git push Heroku head master. So we're pushing it to the head master branch of our Heroku server. So if I come over here, I can look at our logs. Well, here we're pushing the code that's on our local machine to our production environment. And so once we finish pushing the code up, we're going to say, okay, build succeeded, and it's compressing. Done. Launching. Okay, so we get to this launching point. Once we look over here, it says state change from starting to up. So our production server is now reflecting the changes. So the state of the server is up. And so if we come back to our main server page and we refresh the page here with the same query parameter that we had in before, we get exactly what we were looking for: a JSON response with a key value of name, and then useful programmer, which has been adjusted by this. We could say useful programmer with a capital P and a capital U, and that will get us a JSON response with the same thing. And so this is exactly what we want. To pass the tests, we can copy the root URL of our project, and we go back over to Free Code Camp, and in our solution, we can just put this guy in there, and sure hope this is right. Awesome. Pass another one. Again, most Node apps are going to be using arrow parameters. This does the exact same thing. This is something that you probably want to adjust.
So he did name and didn't do the last name. It's a little bit hard for me to understand how the URL becomes that. I understand that this is going to be slash name there at the end, which would be here in this case. But I don't understand this request and response. So I guess this is requiring the query first, which is going to be after the, I don't know if it's a percentage or a question mark sign. It's going to be first. Yeah, but I don't understand if that's put there automatically or not, or because in the web pages, when you're just using as a user, it's you never have to do anything with the URL, so it's just automatic. And I guess it's because the client is speaking with the server for each action you do on the page, and that's why you call these things. But I don't understand very well what's happening. Like, it's kind of too abstract, I think. It's not too abstract, but how can I explain this? It's like I would learn better, I think, if I understood what each thing is doing and why we are doing this beforehand. I guess this is the way that the client's gonna speak with the server. And these are the functions that are gonna happen. So my problem and my questions and what I'm not understanding really well is how the URL updates if I haven't specified anything here to update the URL. This is kind of like the paths. I guess I'm gonna have each file for these paths here, and then once those files get triggered, then this commands are gonna happen, and this is gonna change the URL. Maybe that's it. But I feel like the so far it's not really well explained on the
On
free
your
code
applications.
camp thing.
I'm not going to push this up right now because I'm just going to do it. We're going to adjust this code in the future lesson. But for now, we've passed that test. And so we built a API endpoint, and we've deployed that to a real production application, which receives...
It's more like focus on memorizing or trying to do the things instead of understanding
parameters. So, or not
how
parameters,
they
but
work,
query data, which is great. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you in the next lesson.
which is a problem with any teaching tool, I think, because it's really hard to focus more on the fundamentals because it's more abstract and difficult to learn and not really so useful. Not so useful at first, but it's better. Like the main focus of these things is just to turn you into a brain dead machine that works for other people and doesn't have critical thinking. But yeah, that's why most educational stuff is designed this way. I guess, but it's counterproductive because you probably learn a lot better. You probably you learn a lot better if you focus on understanding rather than reproducing. But it's not their fault either because things have to be built this way because otherwise most people are not gonna use them because most people are not concerned with understanding things. They just want things. So if you don't design it this way, then nobody uses and it doesn't get volume and marketing through to mouth, word to mouth, or whatever that it's called, mouth to mouth. I don't know. uh, Forgot the name of that. When things go viral because other people are talking about. One person talks about the other person that generates an exponential effect. It's the same reason why educational content, really high level educational content on YouTube is harder to scale because the bigger you go, the more diversified you have to become. It's just like the nature of the way this structure works on a market economy. So when you're using the get request, it shows up on the URL, but on the post it doesn't. Right now, I'm assuming that the get is when the client, the application is getting something from the server, and the post is what's doing after it gets the information. Where's the data coming from? Post requests. You have to install the body parser package. This package allows you to choose a series of middleware which can decode data in different formats. Install the body parser module in your package.json. Then require it at the top of the file. Start in a variable named body parser. So I have to go to the package JSON file. I assume I have to put here. No body parser. It's already there. I think it's already done here. Maybe those instructions are for if you're doing it locally. The middleware to handle URL encoded data is returned by body parser. But URL encoded. As usual, I don't understand what's asking me to do. take this off because it's too hot. This headset. I'm just gonna look at the useful programmer stuff again. Don't understand what it's asking me to do.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Today, we're going to use Body Parser to parse post requests. If you haven't been following along throughout the whole thing, this is going to seem difficult because we're actually deploying to a real Heroku served web app. And so start at the beginning of this section if you haven't done that before. Besides Git, there's another common HTTP verb. It is post. Post is the default method used to send client data with HTML forms. In the REST convention, which is read, evaluates, I can't remember what REST is. Post is used to send data to create new items in the database, a new user or a new blog post. You don't have a database in this project, but you are going to learn how to handle post requests anyway. In these kind of requests, the data doesn't appear in the URL; it is hidden in the request body. This is a part of the HTML request, also called the payload. Since HTML is text-based, even if you don't see the data, it doesn't mean that it is a secret. The raw content of an HTTP post request is shown below. So here we have post, the path is equal to, and then there's a subpath, and then they're just passing in the number 1 from John, user agent, some browser. So this is all the information it has. It has encoded content type, and then there's the name is equal to John Doe, and the age is 25. So as you can see, the body is encoded like the query string. This is the default. The body is encoded like the query string. The name is the key. John Doe is the value. So there's key value pair. So this is a object with 2 key value pairs, name and age, and it's separated by an n%. So it's encoded the same as a query string. This is the default format used by HTML forms. With AJAX, you can also use JSON to handle data having a more complex structure. There's also another type of encoding, multi-part form data. This one is used to upload binary files. In this exercise, you will use a URL encoded body. To parse the data coming from post requests, you have to install a body parser package. Remember, we already installed some packages, so we know how to do that. Body parser, this package allows you to use a series of middleware which can decode data in different formats. So the first thing we want to do is install body parser module into your package.json. So let's go check out body parser. npm. We can get body parser here, and then required at the top of the file. Okay, so we're going to get body parser. Let's see here. Installation. There's always different ways to install npm packages. So they say npm install body parser. So like, there's multiple ways to do this, but let's just do it the way that they've got it. So currently, oh wow, body parser is already here. So yeah, let's pretend body parser weren't here. I'm going to come over here. You can see I'm at the root. It's boilerplate npm, and I'm going to say npm install body parser. And I don't know if that's even going to change anything here. Install body parser. It looks like something changed. I wasn't actually watching up here. But anyways, and now if we hadn't done that, we want to make sure we run npm install. If we have previously done it, npm install is not actually going to do much. But if you npm install is a good way to just it's kind of like resetting your computer. It just like refreshes the thing. So if I go get status, you can see, oh, package.json has been updated. So this package.json file did change, but npm install didn't. So I don't know that it actually made a difference. And then so here it says var body parser require body parser. So this is the installation, and this is how you get it started. And I think our instructions actually tell us to do that. Then require it at the top of your file. Require it at the top of the file. So if we go to my app.js, first we want to go to the top of the file and say require. And then this should be like, oh no, look, we're using single quotes. So I want to use single quotes for require. And store it as a variable named body parser. Okay, so var body parser is equal to require body parser.
So I'm not sure if I should do this on mine because I'm doing it on Replit. Probably not. Let's see how it's written here. Body slash parser. So now it's showing up an error here. Maybe it's just one of those wraplets errors that actually doesn't matter.
To middleware. The middleware to handle URL encoded data is returned by bodyparser.url extended that. So we want to pass to app.use the function returned by the previous method call. Okay. The middleware must be mounted before all routes need it. Okay, so this is middleware, meaning that we're adding this to the thing. So, okay, yeah, we're going to be adding it here rather than down here. Why do we not add place it before? Why do we not add it here? And we add it up here because we want this is called middleware, and we want the middleware to run before all the other routes run because we want it to run on all routes. It doesn't say anything about paths, so we're going to say app.use, and usually you put your path here, right? But we want the path to just be all paths, so we're not adding it there. I'm going to go function, request, res, and then for middleware, we need to make sure we add the next.
So it's doing after the ID stuff. Here.
In there, because if we don't add next, it gets stuck on the middleware. And so before, we can just add next here because we know we want to do that at the end of our code. And it looks like we say the middleware to, okay, then required at the top, store it as a variable body parser, and then the middleware to the handle URL encoded data is returned by bodyparser.url. So yeah, I think we just paste that in here, and we'll see that var body parser, that's what we added up here. So as usual, middleware must be mounted before all the routes which need it. Okay, so I think that this is one of those exercises where we're not actually going to see any functional change in our application. So yeah, let's save this. Let's console.log. I guess we could console log body parser. Let's see what happens when this happens. So if I save this, and then I'm going to go over here to my production app, or in the root, I'm going to say npm start to get my local machine running this application. So what happens if we load the URL page? Well, this is brand new information. What we're doing now is we're logging the body parser. So the body parser is being printed out as this guy. So it has JSON, raw, text, URL encoded. My guess is this is a lot of information in here. And yeah.
I think that's how we did it. URL encoded.
Yeah. So that's good. It looks like we're adding this middleware to the application. So
I think it's not going to be right because on mine, because I did it on Rapid. So probably the variable up there.
The local server, so the local server won't run now. And so now we have it running locally, but what we want to do now is get it pushed so that our production app is running it, right? Because we have our application on Heroku, but right now this Heroku server does not have the information that we have saved here. So here's our logs for our production server, and so we're going to say get add, and then we're going to say get commit, and we're going to say add body parser, and what do you say? Run and add function to run for each route. Okay, so now we've staged the commit, our changes are ready, and now we can push this code change to our development server. So get push Heroku head master. Okay, so now as my local machine is pushing this code up, and Heroku is interacting with my local machine saying we've installed the dependencies, we built the cache of node modules, and we're compressing it, and then once it says launching here, oh, you know what? I think that I've timed out here. I think I need to restart the logs. Yeah, now it says state change from starting to up. So we are back to live. So now if I come over here and yeah, well, the problem with this one is if I run the changes, I don't think it's going to actually show anything. Yeah, I undid the console log, so we're not actually going to even see anything in here. But if we see, we can see that with our changes, we're not, I mean, we haven't changed the way the application works. We can still work on everything. So that tells me that it's probably not broken. But having the body parser functioning in here doesn't really change anything in terms of what we can see in the production app. So I'll take it back over to here, and then I'm pasting in the root URL of our production app, and I'm going to say we completed the challenges. Okay, did not work, so I'm doing something wrong. Okay, so after researching this a little bit, I'm realizing I'm actually doing this quite incorrectly. The documentation requires that it actually shows you how to use this. So app.use, so I've scrolled down to here and it's like express connect top level generic. So this is the thing that we want to do. Here we have our app, so we've saved our app as an express app, app.use, body parser extended false, and then it says, then we want to parse the JSON. And so, yeah, let's just paste these guys in here. So instead of this body parser middleware thing that I made, which was totally wrong, I'm just going to get rid of that. Well, let's keep that parse application
So
JSON
it's inside there instead of outside. Apparently it's like this, and then body parser.json. I think you did it right.
in there. What does this does? Parse the application XML form format. So I'm just going to save this. Now I've copied directly from the npm package information. Let's have another one. Let's add app.get, and then we're going to say body parsed info. So we're just going to add an application, and we're going to say we're going to create a function with a request and a response. And here we're going to say res.json, and in the JSON object we're going to pass in parsed, and we're going to say in here we're going to say body parser. So what I'm doing now is I've just created a get things in which we can go to this URL and we'll get information from the body parser. So maybe we'll have to do body parser.json. Now we'll just do body parser, see what happens. Okay, so if I save this and then I go over here, npm start. Again, I don't think that this is actually required. I'm just trying to show you how this works. So if I go to our app, localhost, and then at this get request, we get an empty thing. So body parser. What happens if we go .json? If I save this, cancel, restart the web app, refresh, still don't get anything. What happens if I just console.log body parser? Save that, cancel this, run this, refresh. Okay, so then now we're getting the body parser. So it must be some sort of internal tool that's being used. So I'm not really understanding this entirely, but I'm just going to get rid of that now and then save this because I'm pretty sure that this is what is going to be required to pass these tests. So I'm going to cancel the local server, and I want to push this to my production environment because in order to pass these tests, we need to have our production app, which can be found here. We can, at this URL, we need to have that work. So I want to push this to our production app. So that is git add, git commit, update body, fix error with body parser initiation. Now I can want to say something like git push, and I want to add this to the Heroku, and I'm going to say to the branch of headmaster. And so now I'm pushing this code to our production server. If this is sounding repetitive to you, that's great because repetition is helpful in learning. If you haven't gone through all the ones that we've done for basic node and package management, then you probably should. See, in our production app, in Heroku, the servers are saying we started to build what Ian's pushed up. We've deployed, we've released version 75. It's taking a while to go through these. And now it's listening. So yeah, now our thing's working. The problem with this exercise is that we're not really going to see a difference if we get it right. So yeah, our logs say that it's up, and we just got the name, which was an older project that shows us that the server's working. We can come back over here and resubmit. Great, and so that worked. And so the key here was just to read the documentation a little closer. The previous thing that I wrote was invalid. Sorry for making the video a little longer, but I think it's useful to show that everybody just struggles with this stuff. I'm not sure anybody gets this like right away. It's kind of a process to work through. So I try to show that a little bit without doing it too much. I cut out some of the fat. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we'll see you in the next lesson.
Pretty sure this is not gonna work. It should put, yeah. Hopefully it does work. Nice. This is the last one. It's weird that this thing keeps showing up these errors here, but they actually don't matter. I'm thinking about some stuff that I want to do with APIs later on. So this is distracting me a little bit. I prepared a form in the HTML front page. We'll submit same data of exercise 10, query string. If the body parser is configured correctly, you should find the parameters in the object rec body. Have a look at the usual library example. That's the same example as before. Spawn the same JSON objects as before. Test it. Test if your endpoint works using the HTML form we provided in the with front page. There are several other HTTP methods other than get and post. I convention there is a correspondence between HTTP verb and the operation you are going to execute on the server. The conventional mapping is post, sometimes put. Create a new resource using the information sent with the request. Okay. Create a new resource using the information sent with the request. Get, read an existing resource without modifying it. Put or patch, sometimes post. Update a resource using the data sent. Delete a resource. There are also a couple of other methods which are used to negotiate a connection with the server. Except from get, all other the other methods listed above can have a payload. I don't know what this stands for. The data into the request body. Body parser middleware works with these methods as well. So it's the same thing as before, but with the post. If I get it correctly. This is probably what they want me to do. Not I'm gonna use look at the useful programmer again.
Hello, friends. Welcome back. Today we're doing our last basic Node and Express work. If you haven't been following along with me, all managed packages with NPM and basic Node and Express, I've completed and done them in a production web app, which can be found at this URL. If you haven't done this, I'd recommend doing it because we're actually deploying a web app to the real internet and then posting it over here. And so now we're going to complete that one. Okay, basic Node and Express. Get data from post request. Mount a post handler at the name of path. So, okay, it's the same path as before. So if you see name, we actually have a name one. I think it's down here. Yeah, here we have name. So we have a get request at name. Now we want to make a post request at app. So it's going to be app.post. We have prepared a form in the HTML front page. Yeah, and if we go npm start, we can see where we're running it now. Oh, this might break it. No, it doesn't. Okay, 2. If I refresh the page, if I go to our local host, we have our form is right here. we'll submit data of exercise 10. It will submit the same data of exercise 10, the query string. If the body parser is configured correctly, you should find the parameters in the request.body. Have a look at the usual library example. So here, if we went to post, this is just an example. They're saying library. If we add the URL encoded body, so this is kind of like the information that's passed from the body parser, and it looks the exact same. So request.body, we have a user ID, which is 546. So user ID 546, book ID. So this data turns into, in the request body, we get a JSON object with 2 key value pairs associated with each of them. So we want to respond with the same JSON object as before. So name is equal to first name, last name, and test if your endpoint works using the HTML form we provided in the app front page. There are several other HTTP methods other than get and post, and by convention, there's a correspondence between the HTTP sent and delete, which deletes a resource. There are also a couple of other methods which are used to negotiate a connection with the server. Except from get, all the other methods listed above have a payload. The data in the request body. The body parser middleware works with these methods as well. Okay. And so we want to respond with the same JSON object as before and test if your endpoint works using the HTML form provided in the app front page. Okay. So what we want to do is when we submit this, it's going to do something. Now here we say post, and then it just went, nothing happened. So app.post, we want to, in here we're going to add our path, right? So yeah, mount a post handler at path /name. So we've got get up here, but we've got post.
Do this? Yeah.
Here. And then so we're going to do something here, right? Function, we've got a request and a response. And within the request and the response, we're going to do something. So let's see, it will submit the same data exercise in the body parser. Should find the parameters in request.body. Have them look as the usual. Respond with the same JSON object as before. Okay, so let's see, let's console.log our request dot, what is it? Body. Okay, so for now, I'm just going to save this. This is just a quick test to see what we're working with. So I'm going to start the server again. I'm going to come back over, and I'm going to refresh name. So this is just giving us a get post. And so yeah, what we want to do is come back to the root, and then we're going to say, we're going to pass in useful programmer, and then we're going to see what happens. If we submit this, we get an error. Log invalid arguments passed to console.log. arg.toString is not found. Request.body. Interesting. Let's go back to the root page. And I'm going to inspect this element. If I look up here, we see the form is equal to name, and the method is post. And so we want to do something with this. If the body parsers, you should find the parameters in object rec.body. Okay, well, what if we go rec.body.first? Let's save this, and then I'm going to stop the server and restart it. And then we'll go back and redo this useful programmer. And I'll submit this. Okay, cool. I've logged the rec.body.first. And man, I wonder if we just go res.json. I wonder if we just do the exact same thing. Yeah, we respond with a JSON in which we do our rec.body and rec.body.last. So now if I save this, we should be responding with a JSON object or the name, and we're getting the data from the form rather than from the query request or the param. So we've got params, queries, and then the body. Okay, save this, cancel the server, restart the server, and we're going to go back to the localhost, and in our form, we're going to write in some information.
I guess I don't understand really well because of language barrier. I don't understand what query means.
The page, and we're getting
I kind of think I understand, but not really.
Response with a name and this. And so, yeah, that's pretty interesting, really, because what we're doing here is we're serving out a form, and then instead of having somebody need to be able to do a query parameter where they're like, name, question mark, whatever is equal to useful programmer, this is the query param, or say something like whatever is equal to name or whatever like that. We're just serving up people with a form in which they can submit data to our server, which I think is what we need to pass this test. Cool. So yeah, it does seem to be working. We've got everything saved. So I'm going to cancel the local server, and what we need to do now is push our code to our production server. If we do anything here with right now I'm at our production server, and if we load that, if we go useful programmer, and we submit that, it just says not found because the route that the form went to, even though it works locally here, if I inspect the thing, when we go to the method of post to the action of name, that's just showing up as nothing. And so we want to push our local code to our production server. And so here are the logs on our production server on our Heroku. You log into Heroku and go to more and then view logs. We can say we want to push our stuff up here. So we'll be able to see information that we want to push our code up here, and the logs will show that we're doing that. So I'm going to say git diff. That shows that we've added this post API endpoint. So git add. And so I'm going to git commit add post API endpoint at name path. And so we're going to say git push Heroku, because we're pushing to Heroku, and we want to push to the head and master. And so now our local machine is going to start interacting with the servers at Heroku. So somewhere in the Heroku, server farm in a giant building with, air-conditioned servers, they're starting to kick on and they're starting to interact with my computer. My computer's saying, here's the environment, here's the binaries, here's the dependencies. So we're adding the node manuals or the packages. We're building it, we're caching the thing, it's compressing. Okay, we've launched it, we've deployed to Heroku, and then we see here that the Heroku server went from it stopped all the processes exited. We started the processes with npm start, and now the server's on. We've got our hello worlds logging from up here, and we've said the state has changed from starting to up. So now if we go to our production app, and I don't think we had to refresh the page, but let's do it. And we go to this form, we say useful programmer.
So as far as I understand, the difference is that the first one is getting information from the tab, and he explains there a little bit, this is the query, supposedly. This is getting information from the query, and then the post is supposed to get information from the body of the document. But I still think I need a lot more study to really understand this at a deeper level. And it's really cool to think about that when you're doing this, you're actually communicating with other parts of the planet with some actual computers and stuff there. It's kind of strange and cool at the same time. So now I guess it's the other section of the thing. I'm gonna stop now to go work out. This challenge you set up a MongoDB database Atlas database and import the required package to connect to it. So I guess I can close this one because that's done. You set up a Mongo database and import the required packages to connect to it. Follow this tutorial to set up a hosted database on Mongo. So now it's kind of going to be the same thing that the guy, the useful programmer, was doing with Heroku, I'm assuming. MongoDB Atlas account. I think it's a good thing to stop here because I'm probably gonna do this off stream. Set up the account and get there. Yeah, I'm not sure if I can do this on stream because I might leak something. Not sure if this is gonna show my password on the URL. So I'm gonna follow the tutorial and then add more add these versions to the project's package.json. Then require Mongoose as Mongoose in my app.js. Require Mongoose as Mongoose. Create a env file, add a Mongo underline URL URI or URL variable to it. This value should be your MongoDB Atlas database URL. Okay, so I think I have to do this off stream as well because I probably can't show this. My database URL. Sure, just round the URL with single or double quotes. And remember that you can't use spaces around the equal in environment variables. Then connect to the database using the following syntax. Yeah, I'm gonna do this off stream. So might come back later today or maybe only tomorrow or Friday. I'm not really sure. I'll see. So see ya.